On the morning of April 7th, 2003, Sarah Kunstler, the daughter of the legendary civil rights lawyer Bill Kunstler, joined a small protest in Manhattan against the fledgling Iraq War. I was in law school at Columbia at the time, Sarah Kunstler recalled Tuesday. I had my knapsack and books with me, and I thought the demonstration was early enough so I'd be able to get to class on time. She thought wrong. Kunstler hadn't counted on the iron-fisted, crowd-controlled tactics the NYPD had begun to adopt, tactics the department would later employ in even more shocking mass arrests at the Republican convention in 2004. That day in 2003, Kunstler started walking a picket line outside the offices of the Carlyle Group, a major war contractor. Police immediately cordoned off the street and allowed no one to enter or leave. Then, without any announcement, they started arresting all the protesters on trumped-up charges. This, according to dozens of witnesses and the NYPD's videotape of events that day, all of which came to light as part of a 2004 federal civil rights suit that the Bloomberg administration finally agreed to settle Tuesday for $2 million.
The case is called Kunstler et al. Versus New York City. Sarah Kunstler joins us now in our Firehouse studio. $2 million you've won.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous statement, and it's a tremendous victory, I think, for free speech rights in this city. And a long time coming.
Explain how it happened and how the court case went on. You were arrested. You were planning to go to school, but you got arrested.
I was planning to go to school. I went to the protest around 8 a.m. Within half an hour, we were ringed by cops in riot gear. It was very frightening. I've been going to protests in this city since I was a child on my father's shoulders, and I'd never seen a police response like this one. I had my backpack. It was filled with books. It was heavy. I walked up to an officer and I said, "What do I have to do not to get arrested?" And it was at that point that I was arrested.
And you, you had told me earlier this week, you heard one of the white shirts say, "Nobody leaves." Right?
Yeah, no, I heard nobody gets in, nobody gets out. Mm-hmm. You know, when the officer arrested me, one of the white shirts said, "Get that one." Mm-hmm. It was really frightening because nobody understood why it was happening.
Your mother represented you?
My mother represented me.
Margie Ratner?
Yeah, I was charged with 2 counts of disorderly conduct, and there was I actually didn't know anyone that I was arrested with at the time I was arrested. I wasn't part of the organizing of the protest, but we became very organized very quickly because we all shared this outrage and frustration over what had happened to us. Nobody was taking ACDs. We took a
ACDs, a German contemplating dismissal. For those people who in other cities that don't understand the term.
Yeah, no, they offered us a German in contemplation of dismissal, which means if you keep your nose clean for a number of months afterwards, then it'll get wiped from your record. But on principle, we hadn't done anything, and so I went to trial. It was a one-day judge trial, and I was acquitted.
Now, according to the New York Times, the city had 5 lawyers handling the case over 4 years, along with a special appellate team. A conservative estimate is that New York City spent $1 million on the defense of this case, including the salaries and benefits of police officers and lawyers before agreeing to the settlement.
Yeah, it was a tremendous waste of money from beginning to end. From the number of officers they brought out to police the protest and arrest us, for putting 100 of us through the system, through winding our cases through the criminal courts for months, and then for defending a meritless position in this lawsuit for almost 5 years. I don't know how the city justifies spending that kind of money.
I think one of your lawyers told me that the city deposed 150 people, relatives, spouses of the complainants, trying to prove that they didn't really suffer much distress or as a result of these actions.
Yeah, I think that our lawyers spent a number of years and we're doing depositions 2 days a week solid for at least 2 years.
Why were you protesting the Carlyle Group?
The protest was right after the bombing started in March 2003, and it was right after there were a series of protests in New York starting in February where there was an outrage building in this city. And that protest, the Carlyle Group was a target because of war profiteering, military profiteering. They're an investment group that has ties to a number of ex-presidents and the Bush family, and they have a large number of their holdings are in military investments, and they've done very well over the past 5 years.
Well, I mentioned in my column in the Daily News this week that you had just finished, not too long before that, the making of a documentary on Tulia, Texas, the scenes from the drug war, where you talked about all the false arrests that were conducted in this small town in Tulia. And here you were, fresh from making that film, and all of a sudden you're dragged into a false arrest situation right here in New York. And now you're a lawyer.
Now
You're a criminal defense lawyer. The education you got on the streets there versus what you got at Columbia Law School.
You can't compare the two. I mean, you know, real life experience wins every time. I think that as a lawyer and as a political person, I value this experience. I value this experience because I was naive before it. I thought that as a white middle-class person, that I was immune from this kind of treatment. I'd seen it happen to people of color and poor people my entire life, and I thought that I was invisible to the police, that if I wanted to get arrested, I could choose to commit civil disobedience and participate politically that way. And if I wanted to go exercise my free speech rights in a protest lawfully, I could do so, and I could control the parameters of that. And I learned that I don't have that freedom.
The city lawyer, Susan Hlatten, said this settlement was reached without any admission of liability on behalf of the city and the individual defendants.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, that's why they settle these cases. If they should have settled it a lot earlier. The police in this case, during these depositions, contradicted themselves constantly. At my trial, the officer who arrested me admitted he never heard a lawful order to disperse when he lied and said he heard one, but that he didn't know where I was. He didn't see me when he heard the order, so I couldn't be convicted for that because he didn't see me hear it.
Any words of wisdom, Sarah Kunstler, for people who are going to Denver and to St. Paul who are planning to protest? It's at the conventions.
Well, we have the NYPD advising the police departments in Denver and Minneapolis. So my word is, you know, is to be wary of the tactics that are going to be employed and to prepare for preventive arrests, because that's what happened in our case. That's what happened here in New York with the Republican National Convention in 2004, and that certainly will happen in Denver and Minneapolis.
Last week it was revealed Denver had these warehouses ready with dozens of metal cages set up with razor wire above with warnings of stun gun use around the warehouse.
That's very frightening.
Well, Sarah Kunstler, I want to thank you very much for being with us. She is now a lawyer, she is a filmmaker, and she is the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit against New York City. The settlement, $2 million. I think each of the protesters gets something like $18,000. The lawyers get over $1 million. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And I just want to let people know that Democracy Now! Is expanding to 2 hours daily for the 2 weeks of the Democratic and Republican conventions, beginning on August 25th, ending September 5th. Our special coverage, Breaking with Convention, War, Peace, and the Presidency. We'll be broadcasting from Denver and St. Paul, from the streets to the suites to the convention floors. That's August 25th to September 5th, 2 hours daily. Make sure to tune in to the kind of coverage you only get here on Democracy Now! If you can't be there, be here. And you can watch us both in Denver and St. Paul if you happen to be going to both places as we broadcast on TV and radio there. You can ask your stations when they'll be broadcasting. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Burke, Sharif Abdel-Kudus, Aaron Mate, Angelique Kamet, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Massoud, Rabbi Karen, Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, Peter Curry is our engineer. Special thanks also to Becca Staley, Angie Kiefer, Samantha Chambly, Jay Salnur, John Randolph, Jose Miranda, Travis Collins, Ray Compani. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Our website, democracynow.org. Thanks for joining us.